All right, so here's the continuation of my video about an amp setup, and I thought I'd include my pedal board with it, so that's kind of a twofer. So I guess so. Like the issue that I was having, and I'm sure a lot of bass players have, is I wanted to run two cabs, and so I have two cabs. They're two 15s. So the Harkey 115 with the horn, and then the Ampeg 115. They're both at 400 watts at 4 ohms. I'm sorry, 400 watts at 8 ohms. And what I have powering them is a Mark Bass Little Mark Vintage 500 watt at 4 ohms. So at 3 ohms, it's 300 watts. 8 ohms, it's 300 watts. Sorry. So I wanted to get the full power of having two cabs, plus I like to have two 15s. I did the 410 for a while. You know, a lot of guys are doing a 210, which is cool. Gives you that punch. I've just, through trial and error, decided that I wanted to do two 115s. Plus, full disclosure, a bass player that I really admire in a really awesome band that I admire plays out of two 15s, and his tone is really awesome. So I'm not gonna give out my secret, but for those of you, you could probably figure it out. I don't know. Anyway, so I wanted to run them, and I wanted to have a clean signal with my clean bass so that I could also run my effects and not have my effects get washed or lose my low end. And that's always the problem, is that you have effects, but you can't really get the signal that you really want, and you can do it through like the effects loop. I've tried that. You know, it all depends on what you're using for your effects. I'll go over that kind of stuff, what I've got, but I tried the effects loop. It just doesn't work all together the way I want it to, so it can work if I made it more complicated. So I want to make it simple. I like to keep things simple so that I don't have to fuss around with too many details and have it easy to set up and play. So I ran two amps at one time, one amp running the one cab and the other amp running the other cab. So I had a clean signal on the one amp, and then I had the effects going into one amp, and that was okay for a while. And I could go into detail about how to do that some other video, but it's basically a master and a slave amp. So one amp is running the other amp. They're both powering the cabinets individually, but one amp is the primary master amp where the signal is being received, and then that is dictating what the tone would be based on your EQ settings, and that works great. And I did that. I like that. You can have separate volumes. Again, that starts to get complicated, so I don't want it to be complicated, and it's mostly because when you're going to different environments, I like to have a really quick and easy reference to be able to not lose the real characteristics and personality of my tone, but be able to change it enough to fit the acoustic environment of different practice spaces or venues. And I know you can plug into the house PA and everything sounds great, but let's be honest, you know, us as bass players, you can go into the PA, but your signal isn't going to probably be the tone you want. It'll just be a bass signal, and it'll sound okay for everybody to hear. Obviously, I want my tone to be exactly what I want my tone to be, and I want that to go to the PA. I know a lot of guys aren't even playing with amps anymore. I've seen bands recently that just go straight to the PA. Great for them. Inner monitors are a great thing to have. I'm looking to get some. Don't want to get rid of my amp though, because that to me is my pure signal of what I'm really going to have on stage with me to reference when I really want to hear what I sound like. And also, if anything goes wrong, at least you can fall back on getting in front of your amp and hearing your signal the way that it should sound. And if it's loud enough, you're going to hear it just fine. Sometimes you don't even have to go into the PA. Sometimes going to the PA along with your amp is a great signal, because then you can get the PA signal to be bass, but then you still have your tone, and that still combines. So it's complicated. And I'm sure a lot of people that do videos about this can get into more depth about that, and some of you watching this can get into more depth. But basically, it's all, you know, subjective. It's all opinions, whatever you want to do. So my amp situation now is I'm running one amp, and I have everything going to this. So now I have my pedal board and my amp. So let's just turn this on. All right. So now everything is just going straight in. What's nice about mine is that what I was telling you before is that I have a 3 EQ setting. So old will give you kind of that Motown without the tone, and then the scooped mids is a really good reference point to be able to dial in what you want from there, or go flat. In flat you can, you know, lose a lot of the lows, but sometimes that's a good setting, because then you can just dial up the low. And I like this about how I have a mid-low and a mid-high and the high. My limiter is basically like my compression, or kind of like your frequency, like filter. So less of this. If I put this to 0, you're going to hear a lot more of the clicks of the playing with fingers, and you'll hear more dynamics, playing harder or softer. It can get kind of messy, depends on how you play. I like mine in the middle, dial all the way up. It's nice, but it kind of takes away any kind of attack, and sometimes I dig in and play hard. I do play with a pick a lot too, though. What I do like about this amp is it has its own dedicated DI out with a level. So that's nice. It has its own amp, so I can actually have a really good signal coming out of this thing. So yeah, like I said, I got a 115 and I have another 15. So this old Ampeg is a great, I don't know if I can get it off. Of course. Oops. So yeah, so I got the 115 with the ports, and that's nice to have. And then when I do want to have like the good brightness to shine through, it's good enough that I have the tweeter or a horn. And what's really nice about this amp, hopefully you can see it, you can adjust the high on the horn, or you can leave it off, or you can have it, I think it's just kind of at a minimum. So since we're back here, that's why I kind of wanted to show you is, so yeah, you can go out. It's nice to have 2 outs. Some amps only have 1 out. And if that's the case, these cabinets allow you to do it in a series. So I could go 1 out to this, and then I could take out this one to this one, and vice versa, because this one also has 2. So you can do it in a series, go from one cab to the next cab out of the amp. But I'm doing both out since it has it separately. Now, if you don't know, since we're on the subject, it'll do the same thing either way. It'll still split the signal so that whatever your ohms are, typically it's going to be 8 ohms for your cab. That'll be the minimum out of the amp. But if you do 2 cabs, it's going to cut it in half, and then it would be 4 ohms at full power at 500 watts. That's what you want with your amp. If you really want to get a good sound, I'm going to plug those guys. But yeah, you get the full signal. And that's important, because then you don't have to play loud, but you have a good full signal. So here's what I've got going on with my pedal board. So going in, I've got my preamp MXR, which is really awesome and underrated, but there are quite a few videos and references out there of guys that are pretty loyal to it, and I am. What I like about it is it has a really good overdrive distortion. It's kind of in between. It's like an overdrive that's kind of dirty, but then it's a distortion, and it's subtle, but it's enough that it actually gives you a good bite, and I really like it. I guess I could show you. Let's see. Big muff was on. Anyway, you get the idea. So yeah, I like this because it's got that tube glowing, and it does have a really good tone without it. So I can turn it off. So then it's a cleaner sound. It's a cleaner bass with this off. So it's cleaner. So, you know, if I want to play something that's not so heavy rock and stuff, I've got that option. I'll still have a nice clean bass. But generally I'll have that on. Gives me that grit. You know, think of like, I mean, not exactly, but similar to like an Ampeg SVT amp. You know, really dialed in hot, and it's got that kind of overdrive, and it sounds pretty awesome. So out of this, I'm going into a compressor, and I was gonna not use this at one point. I'm okay with it. It just does it enough. And it just gives me that sustain and kind of tightens up the signal just a little bit. And it's simple, and I like it, and that's why I got it. And from there, that goes... The clean bass signal goes into the line selector Boss LS2. So that's going in as the bass signal clean. And then that bass signal after the other loops, I'll get to that. But basically the bass signal is going in to this and then into this and then out. So then in between there, or in parallel, instead of a series like this that I can't have done, and many you guys do or whatever. So then on a separate channel, separate signal, and you can see it right here with the A and the B, you can adjust the levels. So my clean is the green, and my red is the colored, the effect signal. So you can adjust that how you want it. So I've got a super fuzz, really like the fuzz on it. I like that you can have a bass on it and adjust that. So I have that. Then I've got the big muff. And then I've got this MS60B Zoom, which I love. It's got some really good effects on it. So I got a phaser. I've got a delay. I've got a flanger. And I've got an octave. Obviously the low octave. And I like that. And then I also have the Digitech Bass Synth Wah, which is awesome. So these give me, I can do combinations of them. This already has an octave in it, the setting that I have. And it's got the sub envelope filter. So I've got that with an auto wah, and I get a synth sound. Those are two that I use very regularly, but I can dial in something else anytime. I like that I can combine these also. I think I can have all four at once, but that gets complicated. So generally I'm only using one, and it's nice that I can just toggle right through it. And you know, in a song I'm only going to really pick one. If I pick two, then I'm getting a little too crazy. But you know, generally I'm just using distortion for heavier parts of the song, or whatever, you know, whatever inspires you. But this is a really nice option here, because it really does give the signal. If I did on this video, it still wouldn't do it justice, but what it does is it really makes a big difference as far as the signal goes, with the bass going on the low end and keeping it consistent and pure and not getting affected too much, but then also having my effects going and coloring it up, but not getting lost or not really, sometimes they're overpowering, sometimes they're underpowering, they're more consistent, and no matter what, I still have the low end, which is really, really important for, I think, a lot of people. I mean, even with the, you know, the big muff has lots of low end, you know, you still lose it in different things that you're doing, the way that you're playing, in the kinds of doing chords or fingering up high, low, mid, you know, so all that stuff's important. So I hope this was a useful video. I rambled a lot, but that's my rig. So maybe what I'll do in the next video is I'll show you how it sounds on the Fender Jazz and the Fender Precision. And I have another Fender Precision also. That's a newer one, the vintage vibe, 70s vibe. This is, I'll get over that in the next videos. We'll go over into that in detail. But the sounds are different significantly. One, you know, Precision's a little bit lower and dirtier and grittier, and the Jazz is a little bit more midi, more trebly. Still has the low, but it's a little tighter. Again, it's a matter of opinion. It's subjective. So hopefully this was helpful at some point. If I could say anything, you know, take a tip from this rig. It does sound great at really high volume, at really low volume. It's consistent. It's great. That's why I did what I did. A lot of trial and error. My old rig was good too, but we evolve. All right, stay cool.